Welcome back. Now, back to one of our top stories. Nearly 6,000 people were murdered in the country between July and September this year. The police's head of crime registrar, Thulare Sekhukhune, says this indicates a decline of over 700 compared to the previous period. The SAPS released the long-awaited crime statistics for the first and second quarter today. Let's unpack these numbers with independent crime and violence analyst, Dr Chris de Kock. Dr de Kock, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Now, we heard from Police Minister Feroz Kachalia, who reported that there's been a significant decline in most crime categories. What were some of the highlights for you?
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers. I think everything is basically a highlight. If we look at the 2 quarters, which was released today, we waited very, very long. We nearly waited 6 months for all of these to be released. Actually, all the crime trends look exceptionally good. Murder, which is the most reliable crime trend in both quarters, decreased. Attempted murder, a little bit less positive. It decreased very well in the first quarter, but in the second quarter, it slightly increased. But if you take over the whole period of 6 months, there's a 2% decrease, which is still good. All the robberies actually decreased quite significantly. The overall umbrella category of robbery aggravated decrease with a high percentage, and then all of the carjacking, the house robbery less significant than car robbery or car hijacking. And then business robbery also with quite a high percentage decrease. And I must say, this is the first time in a very long time that we see this. The crimes dependent on police action, that is now drugs and driving under the influence. And I mean, those two especially. Illegal firearms, not much, but drug-related crimes and driving under the influence had a massive increase. I would be very worried to drive under the influence of any alcohol. I think there's 2 worries. The one is kidnapping. Kidnapping still increased. And unfortunately, this is not reflected in the tables that was released. This is usually in the briefing document. Now, the briefing documents was only released for 1 quarter this morning. It was only for the first quarter of the 25-26 financial year. And there, unfortunately, kidnapping increased from 4,205 to 4,466. That's a 6.2% increase. That's the only crime that really significantly increased. And then also commercial crime also increased. Now I want to say something on both of these crimes. Kidnapping, I must say, had a massive increase over the last 2-3 years. And unfortunately, with this latest release, and I say only the 1 quarterly briefing was released, not the second one. And clearly there is quite a doubling of, but it's still a small percentage, but it's a doubling of the kidnappings for ransom. Now, this is a clear indication of an increase in organized crime. And the same applied to commercial crime. And the CITs, that's another one. CITs stabilized. It didn't decrease. Now, for me, that is a clear sign that we are winning on visible policing at station level. There we are all right. But when it comes to organized crime, which we see in the Malanga Commission and in the ad hoc committee, we are not winning at this stage.
Yeah. And, Dr. de Kock, as you're speaking of your two worries there, kidnapping and commercial crime too, obviously those are quite interlinked. And I wanted us to talk about extortion. But before we move to those categories, staying with that big one of murder, I mean, these crime stats have shown a decrease, as we're saying. And I remember a time when it was as high as over 80 murders a day in South Africa, and that's where the stats were sitting. And now we're sitting at an average of about 63 murders a day. But Dr. de Kock, 63 is still pretty high, though, even though it is a 6.5% drop.
No, I agree with you. You see, around about 2002, 2003, we really had a 25% increase in the murder rate. And actually what happened was 2003 to the World Cup in 2010-11, murder decreased from as high as 25,000 down to 15,000. There was really a significant every year systematic decrease because certain actions were taken, especially at station level. Unfortunately, 2012 came and we had a spiraling of murder till the 2020, and then even a higher increase, and we were higher than at the end of 1999. So I think if we can continue with this decrease in murder that we have seen in the past 6 quarters, I'm absolutely believing that we can go back to not maybe 15, but maybe 17 or 18,000.
Hopefully, and also another big one that came out of there when we're talking about the increases, though, reported sexual offences, which increased by 12.4%. Now, just last week, we saw women across the country protesting against GBV once again. Then we heard at the G20, President Ramaphosa declaring it a national disaster. But what does that mean when sexual crimes keep surging?
Yeah, you see, sexual crimes, I must tell you, is the most underreported crime. It is really the most underreported crime. ISS many years ago did a study, and they found about 1 out of every 3 sexual offences were reported to the police. There were other studies which was about 1 in 9 or 1 in 10 of these crimes, like rape and sexual assault, which is reported to police. Now, if you have such a large underreporting, you can get quite a lot of fluctuations, because maybe something developed at some stations, a lady or a female station commissioner was appointed, and now suddenly people who go there with charges or complaints of sexual offences and rape are treated differently as before. I remember many years ago, back when I was still in the police, there was a station, I won't mention the name and the station commissioner's name, I think she now retired as well, but she was appointed in that station, and it was let's say a township station, and suddenly rape increased with more than 50%. And it was only because she changed the station to a friendly station for females in that area. They could go there, they could report a sexual assault, they could report a rape, and that is why her figures increase so suddenly. So it's a very difficult crime to really see if an increase means an increase in the crime or an increase in the reporting of the crime.
Yeah. When we're speaking about the two worries for you earlier, being kidnapping and commercial crime, I mean, extortion has just mushroomed and now even getting its own separate category in these crime stats. Where are the police failing when it comes to fighting this crime? A lot of the time, extortionists are known in the communities that they terrorize and operate. So why aren't they being arrested and prosecuted?
Well, that is a difficult question to answer, because if you know the extortionists and if the community come to the fore and say, this is the people who did this to us, then clearly legal action should follow. And I mean, court action, they should be charged. They should be arrested and they should be taken to court. And unfortunately, this is a characteristic of organized crime at all levels. As I said, there was a very, very disturbing increase in kidnapping, although it's still a small category, in kidnapping for a ransom, nearly doubled. And that is only in one quarter because we don't have the figures for the other quarter. But you see, kidnapping, for example, you have different layers of kidnapping. You have this ransom kidnapping, where millions is involved, where children and wives and even businessmen are kidnapped, and there's a massive ransom that is paid. We don't even know of all the cases because usually the family are warned that if they go to the police, these people will be killed. And then we have got now a new layer right down at the bottom, if I can put it like that, where people working in restaurants, people working at hospitals, nurses, cleaners at hospitals, when they receive their small little salary at the end of the month or at the end of the week, if we talk of restaurant workers, and they get into a taxi, it's not a legitimate taxi. And all of them are then forced to transfer with their money app their 3,000 or 5,000 rand to a certain account. And from there, the money is taken then immediately. Now, this is a very difficult situation for the police, even if people report it, except if they report and they know who did this to them.
Yeah, that is quite indeed a thing. And also after the break, we're also going to be speaking to the MK party, because I'm sure you've heard one of their MPs was also kidnapped. So clearly that is becoming quite the problem indeed. But Dr. de Kock, thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate your time.